Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about some signs that a dismissive avoidant attachment style individual misses you after a breakup. So this is sort of part of this ongoing breakup sort of series that we're doing where we're touching on key components and how different parts of a breakup affect different attachment styles. We will go through and talk about some sort of like most common to least common reasons in that order throughout this video. And this will be part of a series where we'll talk about the fearful avoidant, the anxious preoccupied, and even the securely attached individual. So stay tuned for all of that. We are still doing our With You sale to support our community, 25% off membership bundles for 3, 6, and 12 months. And that membership comes with access to all of our group live social events with their attachment coaches, where you get to see people face to face and connect and go through exercises together with other like-minded individuals, as well as the 4 live webinars I do every single week that are open Q&A to get your personal questions answered. And then also, of course, all of our 35, it might be more like close to 40 now at this point, like 38 maybe, previously recorded courses on everything from boundaries to codependency to and enmeshment to attachment style reprogramming courses to literally emotional mastery and belief reprogramming courses, your needs, understanding self and creating a stronger self identity. All these different things are all in the school. So feel free to check that out. A link in the description box below. So let's talk about the most common sign first, okay, that a dismissive avoidant misses you. And I want to be very clear about a couple things. So listen to this whole point, because at the end, there's a really important component of it. One of the most common things we'll see a dismissive avoidant do is reach out indirectly. So this can be liking your posts on social media, watching your Instagram stories, talking, liking pictures of you, for example, in a friend's picture. If you had mutual friends, that's not, of you directly posted on your social media platform, but maybe on theirs. Posting a song on social media that you used to listen to together. And when this is happening, to a certain degree, the dismissive avoidant is kind of like secretly hoping that you'll reach out. But keep in mind that they do this because they miss you, but they aren't willing to do the work to fully get back together. Okay. And something that we really want to be clear about and really use as a framework here, and this goes for every attachment style, but this is more particular for dismissive avoidance and fearful avoidance too. It's like the feelings minus the fears. So if there is, let's say the person still has 8 out of 10 feelings left as an example, and let's say their fears are a 7 out of 10, you'll get this net positive 1 out of 10 indirect kind of line of communication that's open. So the liking the photos, all these different things. And I don't advise that you take this and run with it, because you don't want to reach out if you see this, because if the fears are that close to the feelings, then you're going to get that same type of behavior that extends itself in whatever happens next between you and that person. So for example, if you see this indirect stuff, that's the person indirectly communicating to you, I care, I miss you, I'm thinking of you, but not enough to fully show up. Otherwise, they would be. And yes, dismissive avoidants are less likely to do this. And yes, they're more conflict avoidant. And yes, they're less likely to be the drivers in a relationship dynamic. But at the end of the day, I'm going to tell everybody honestly, I've seen hundreds of dismissive avoidants in different, marital situations that came into my office and my practice, all these different things. And non-marital situations too, by the way, where the dismissive avoidant does reach out, does come back around. Yes, they're less likely to, it happens less often, but still we kind of fall into this place of feelings minus fears. Somebody could feel 10 out of 10 for you, but if they have 9.5 out of 10 of fears, you're going to still get really indirect behavior. So I think that's a really important point just to be aware of. So that's number one. Number two, another sign is they will reach out directly, but without vulnerability. So you don't have the indirect reaching out, you have the direct reaching out, but there's no vulnerable or emotional component. This can be things like reaching out, sending you a meme or a short text or a link to an article, something like that. And again, it's the same principle. It's not necessarily that they want it to work. They can still be missing you, thinking of you, wanting to connect to you in some way, but not in a way that's allowing them to be vulnerable, right? And so you won't see until you sort of collect more information, right? Like this is a starting point. So if you see this, what you're getting in the moment that you get the meme, the link to an article, whatever it might be, is I'm thinking of you enough to reach out directly to you. It doesn't mean that you have to go, okay, there's no vulnerability, so that's it. I'm not going to put any hope and I'm just going to cut it and move on. That could be a good idea in certain cases if it was an unhealthy past, if you know that the person's in a sticky situation still, things like that. If the person explicitly, when they broke up, said, I will never be willing to do the work, whatever it might be, that's one thing. But from this point, at least there's like a window open. And what you would do next, ideally, is take a few days to maybe continue the communication, maybe a week or two, and see if that changes and more of that vulnerability comes out. If it doesn't, then you have to remember, like, what I'm seeing is what I'm getting. And sometimes especially with like really empathetic people, you can get in the trap in a way of like seeing and understanding that person's perspective so much that it allows you to justify their behavior. So for example, you might go, oh my gosh, well, they're afraid. And so it's okay that they're so indirect. I'll do all the work just as me, just as myself, because they're afraid. And that's where you accidentally use your ability to see from somebody else's perspective as something that actually takes you out of the equation, takes your own feelings, needs out of the equation, prevents you from taking yourself into consideration, really. And that's where we can get into these unhealthy dynamics that are a little bit codependent in a way and also unfair to self. And this isn't just with a dismissive, this is with anybody of any attachment style. So what we have to be able to do is look at the dynamic, see, okay, this might be a hopeful note, but I still have to have a standard for myself that says, I have to see that this person's willing to do the work with me. That vulnerability increases, the emotional bonding increases. We get closer and closer day after day or week after week. And then we see that the feelings minus the fears, the feelings and the showing up is vastly outweighing the fears. And so that's sort of the point that you're trying to get to. Okay. So this is sort of the second most common. Then we have third, the person reaches out directly with vulnerability. And this is a good sign that the feelings are really in the lead, but it won't necessarily stay that way and can shift quickly if a triggering conversation takes place. And this is where sometimes we'll see a dismissive avoidant miss somebody, feel like there's momentum building, then there can be a miscommunication or something go wrong and dismissive avoidant can go back into their shell. And then what we're really looking for in that case is, does the person come back? Do they come back out of their shell? Do they talk about it? Are they willing to work through that conversation? You can lead the way. You can say, hey, I want us to work through that. What did you need in that situation? What about that offended you? What was going on with you? And here's what I think is a more appropriate response for next time. Can we work on this? You can open the dialogue, okay? Our fourth most common, and again, we're getting into like the much less common things that we will see. But we can see dismissive avoidance reach out and just say, I miss you. And want to do something to work on the relationship and the dynamic. And this is a great sign that feelings are definitely in the lead. But again, you have to have a proper conversation collectively. You can check out the video I recently released called How to Respond to Your Ex Coming Back. This is a great conversation for everybody to have. And it's really about clarifying our boundaries, our needs, our primary and secondary triggering patterns, what wasn't working, what we need to change about what wasn't working, so that we don't just go down the same trajectory, follow the same patterns, and then fall into the same outcomes like a breakup all over again. So you can check that out. And obviously from there, really great things can happen. If you sort of have like the momentum building, the directness, the vulnerability, have a great conversation, and then you can get into a new path and have a new outcome. So these are some really common signs. Again, someone missing you doesn't necessarily mean that they're willing to do the work. And boundaries in relationship to self are the most important, right? You don't want to violate yourself because of hope. When hope, you're seeing the behaviors not line up with some of the hopefulness that's there. It doesn't mean that hope's a bad thing. Hope is a beautiful thing, but we have to be able to not just hope and then live in the hope without recognizing where the actions are actually at and seeing that there's momentum building. Okay. So they can't be two mutually exclusive things. So I hope this makes lots of sense. Stay tuned for the next part of this series. Ask me your questions below. What do you do when you miss someone? I'm curious to hear. And what is your attachment style? Hopefully we can see some of the different patterns of behavior show up in the chat there. But that's it for now. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.